Okay, so I guess we can get going here. So hi everyone who's here. Thank you for attending the 2022 Food Justice Summit Feedback Meeting in the Middle. This is a collaborative effort between the Adirondack Health Institute and the Adirondack Food System Network. My name is Michelle Droz and I'm the Executive Director of Cray Garden. And today's session is being presented by Kayla Snyder and Krista Hesdorfer from Hunger Solutions, New York. But before we kick off the session, I just want to give a big thanks to our sponsors, if I can get that up. There we go. These folks helped make this year's event possible, and we're truly appreciative for their support. A big thank you to our keynote and premier sponsors, New York State Health Foundation and Glens Falls National Bank and Trust Company. And for today, just real quickly, during this session, you're going to be muted with video off for the entirety of the presentation. If you have any questions or comments, please place them in the chat and we will be able to assist you. We're going to monitor the chat to ensure that all questions are addressed and answered during the end Q&A portion of the presentation. And all presentations today are being recorded and will be archived on the Summit webpage, and they'll be available to you at ahihealth.org/2022 Food Justice Summit. And lastly, we will be sending out a survey on Friday the 25th, and we'd love to hear your feedback. And so now I will turn it over to our presenters.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for hanging in there through to the last workshop of the day. I'm going to go ahead and share our slide deck here. All right, and with that, as Michelle mentioned, my name is Krista Hesdorfer. I am joined by my colleague, Kayla Snyder. We are both here from Hunger Solutions New York, a statewide anti-hunger organization focused on maximizing the reach of the federal nutrition assistance programs, including SNAP, WIC, school meals, summer meals, the Child and Adult Care Food Program, and most recently, the Pandemic EBT program. We conduct statewide outreach for these programs. We provide technical assistance to schools and community-based organizations, and we conduct legislative and administrative advocacy to expand the reach of the programs. We focus on these programs for several reasons, in part because they are effective, perhaps most importantly because they're effective. They're proven to reduce food insecurity, to improve mental and physical health, to support positive academic outcomes, among many, many other benefits. And then there's the sheer scale of the federal programs and just how far they reach in our communities and across our state. To give you some sense of scale, for every one meal that a food bank through the Feeding America network provides, SNAP provides 9 meals. The programs are also uniquely responsive to changing need, which of course was especially critical over the past couple of years and even through the Great Recession before that. The way that programs like SNAP are structured as entitlement programs means that anybody who qualifies and applies can receive benefits. It's not like there's a limited pot of money that will run out after a certain number of people. And so this structure allows the programs to expand in times of economic downturn and then contract as the economy recovers in a really unique and responsive way. And then of course, as those funds are being drawn down from the federal level into our local communities, families are spending them at grocery stores and farmers markets, which generates economic growth. So it's estimated that for every $1 in SNAP benefits, about $1.50 of economic growth is generated in that local community. So expanding the reach of these federal programs is beneficial for folks who are receiving those benefits directly, but then also for the health of our local economies where those benefits circulate. And then finally, we focus our work on these programs because there's a lot of opportunity for growth in them. All of the federal nutrition programs are undertapped across the state, including in the North Country. So our goal is to close those gaps and make sure that we're making the most of the federal resources that are available to us. And there's 3 overarching strategies that we want to highlight today to help fully leverage the federal nutrition programs. One is plain and simple outreach to families. I know many of you, it looks like, are from local agencies, maybe county health departments, community action programs, really all these types of local organizations that can be trusted messengers to make sure that families know about the programs that are available to them, to clear up some misconceptions and outdated program information that might be out there, and to make sure that families have the help that they need to get through the application process and to use their benefits. We also know that there's a need to increase access to programs in local schools and communities. For some of the programs that we're going to talk about today, like summer meals, families can only access them if there are meal sites operating in their area. So we're going to provide some resources to help programs that are operating in schools or community-based organizations to provide meals to kids in your communities. And finally, we hope that some of you might be able to join us in advocacy to protect, strengthen, and expand the federal nutrition assistance programs. We titled this presentation today, Emerging Opportunities, in large part because there's some really exciting advocacy opportunities on the horizon that could be game changers for reaching families with these programs. So those are the strategies that you'll see sort of popping up throughout our agenda today. We're going to start by walking through the federal nutrition programs, providing some program updates and new resources as we go. I'll start us off with child nutrition programs, and then I'm going to hand it over to Kayla to talk about SNAP. Then I'm going to dive into some of those federal and state advocacy opportunities before we open it up for Q&A. So I do want to say before we start going through our slides, we have a lot of hyperlinks, a lot of resources in here, but have no fear, we'll be sharing the slide deck with you after, so you'll be able to really easily access everything that we mention here. And I also want to note that I see some familiar names in the participants tab, and you may have joined us for some workshops that we've done at the North Country Food Summit in the past. So last year, we did a little workshop focused on COVID-19 flexibilities in the program. And in 2020, some of you might have been in the room in Tupper Lake when we dove into participation rates county by county throughout the North Country. So if that's you and you've joined us in the past, welcome. It's so good to see you again. Some of this may be familiar, but don't worry, there's a lot of new here for you. Lots of developments over the last year that we want to highlight today. If you haven't joined us in the past, don't worry, we're going to provide a quick, 1 to 2 sentence introduction to each program so that we're all on the same page before we dive into the resources. So with that, I'm going to get us started with WIC. So this is one of our more familiar programs, but in case you are not already familiar with WIC, this program provides healthy food, breastfeeding support, nutrition advice, and referrals to moms-to-be, and kids under the age of 5. It's a really important program for reaching kids with nutrition during those critical early years of their growth and brain development. During COVID-19, like a lot of the nutrition programs, WIC has looked a little bit different than it does normally. Most WIC clinics are providing remote services so that families can continue to receive their benefits and connect with their local WIC clinics while maintaining a safe distance. And there's also been a really exciting and important boost in benefits. So families have been receiving about 3 to 4 times the cash value benefit, which they use to buy fruits and vegetables at grocery stores. And so that's been a great flexibility that's been implemented during COVID-19 as well. But even apart from those pandemic-related boosts and flexibilities, WIC has had some really exciting developments over the past several years that have changed the program in really significant ways. One of my colleagues likes to say, this isn't your mom's WIC, and it probably isn't even your older sister's WIC. It really has come a long way even over the last several years. You might remember things like paper WIC checks that used to be part of the program where families had to buy everything on their WIC check in one trip to the grocery store. That's a thing of the past. We now have e-WIC cards where benefits are distributed on an electronic card that families can use at any point in the 30-day benefit cycle and shop how it works for them. There's also a new WIC to go app that makes it easier than ever to shop for WIC approved foods and even scan the foods in the store to see if they're WIC eligible. And most recently, there's a pilot for a new virtual assistant called Wanda that can help families who are interested in enrolling in WIC. So there's lots of good stuff happening in the WIC world, but our ongoing challenge is that we're reaching only about 50% of WIC eligible families across the state. So there's some stuff that we can do about that to reach families. So first, outreach being perhaps most important here. We would really appreciate your help spreading the word about all the good news that's come our way with WIC, letting folks know about the remote services that are happening during COVID-19, letting them know about the boosted benefits that are in place at least until March. We're also especially interested in reaching certain audiences that tend to participate at lower rates. So parents and caregivers of 3- and 4-year-olds being one of those, and also non-maternal caregivers. So folks like dads, grandparents in kinship care households, and foster parents. They might not realize that they can apply for WIC on behalf of kids under age 5 that are in their care. So I've linked a couple of resources on here, one to our general WIC resource center, and then to a more specific toolkit that you can use. We've got flyers, e-newsletter articles, cute little graphics, lots of adorable pictures of children that you can just really easily flip and help share information with families through whatever communication channels you have available. But beyond sort of general outreach to families, we'd really love to see some more intentional and ongoing referral systems between other types of services and organizations that families might be connected with and their local WIC agencies. So if you're here from a community action program or a Head Start or a food pantry or really any type of family serving organization, we'd really encourage you to consider an ongoing referral system with your local WIC agencies, and we'd be happy to work with you to figure out what that might look like. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, families can only access the programs that are available to them in their communities. And while WIC is available statewide and nationwide, we know that not all families have easy access to stores that accept their WIC benefits. So if you are in a position where you can help identify and encourage more WIC vendors in underserved areas, that's another really impactful way to expand the reach of the programs. And again, if you want to reach out, we'd be more than happy to help you do that. So another lesser known, but still very important program for our little ones and some school age kids as well is the Child and Adult Care Food Program, or CACFP. So CACFP provides reimbursement funds to childcare providers, childcare centers, and after-school programs to help them provide healthy meals and snacks to the kids that are in their care. Currently, about half of the childcare providers in the North Country are participating in CACFP, which is great for those providers and it's great for the kids that they serve. But certainly there's a lot of room for more providers to come into the program. And among the after-school component of CACFP, there's even more room for growth. Before the pandemic, fewer than 1 in 7 of our low-income kids in New York had access to after-school meals. And we know that the pandemic further disrupted access to after-school programs in a lot of areas. So still a need for outreach here, but in this case, we would appreciate your help reaching out to childcare providers and after-school programs. So we have a variety of resources that are available on our website, childcaremealsny.org. If you have any connections to childcare centers, to home-based childcare providers, to schools that are offering after-school enrichment, or even to YMCAs, Boys and Girls Clubs, those types of organizations, please help us amplify the CACFP program that's available to them to help feed kids. We're especially interested in reaching schools ahead of next school year. We're hearing that more and more schools are going to be introducing after-school programs or expanding existing after-school programs next school year as they leverage some federal funding that's come down for that purpose and to help with academic recovery. So we want to make sure that providing healthy meals and snacks is an integral part of that conversation as they're making their plans for next school year. So we do have an updated FAQ for after school programs that can be especially helpful for those folks. So let's talk about school meals. So I'm sure all of you know that school meals have been an absolutely instrumental support for families during the pandemic. Over the last 2 school years, most schools have been providing free meals to all kids without requiring any income applications. That has been a game changer for eliminating the stigma of accessing free school meals, reducing administrative burdens for schools, and allowing schools to focus on things like innovative meal service models, farm to school, which I know a lot of you are involved in here. So those flexibilities, that ability to offer free meals to all kids without application, that's enabled through some nationwide COVID-19 waivers. And unfortunately, those waivers are set to expire at the end of this school year. So what that means is that without congressional action, and we'll get to congressional action later, but if there is no congressional action, most schools are going to have to switch back to how they were operating before the pandemic. And so for a lot of schools, that's going to be a tiered payment system where families pay different amounts based on their household income. We're really concerned about the impacts of this shift everywhere, but especially in our rural communities. In a lot of rural areas, schools have been able to leverage a program called the Community Eligibility Provision, or CEP, that allows them to serve free meals to all kids despite the pandemic. They were able to do that before, and they'll be able to continue providing free meals to all of their students even after the waivers expire. But rural schools have a harder time reaching the eligibility threshold for that CEP program. And so it's primarily going to be our rural schools that are going to lose the ability to serve free school meals for all of their students. But there are some ways that we can get ahead of this and make sure that we're reaching as many kids with free school meals as possible, even after the waivers expire. And the key piece to this puzzle is SNAP outreach. So Kayla is going to share more SNAP outreach resources in a few minutes, so I'm not going to dwell too much on the specific resources, but I do want to make the point that when a household participates in SNAP, all of the kids in that SNAP household are automatically qualified for free school meals without an application. And the number of kids in a particular school or district that have that automatic eligibility through other programs like SNAP, that number is what determines whether the school or district can participate in CEP to provide free school meals to all kids. So there's a direct connection between doing SNAP outreach to increase SNAP participation among students and that school's ability to tap into CEP and provide free meals to all their kids beyond the pandemic. So to that end, we produced a SNAP outreach for schools toolkit that is, messaging specifically geared toward families that schools can really easily copy and paste. There's some newsletter articles that they could stick into a parent newsletter, some little graphics and things they can put on their website to make it really easy for families to connect with SNAP. There are some other best practices that schools can implement to make sure that they're reaching as many kids as possible. I will not get into the weeds of what direct certification is on this call, but if you're from a school, and we just produced a direct certification tip sheet to help schools catch as many kids as possible who are supposed to be automatically certified for free school meals. We're also working on a toolkit that should be released over the next couple of weeks to help schools encourage more families to submit free or reduced price school applications, or school meal applications rather. So after a couple of years of not needing those applications, we know it's going to be a really difficult shift for families. And it's going to be really important for schools to communicate clearly the importance of submitting those applications. So we've put together some materials to make that a little bit easier. If you're here from a school or you're connected with a school and you want to dig in any deeper on CEP or other ways to maximize school meal programs, I've included my colleague's email address here, Jessica Pino Goodspeed. Jessica works one-on-one with schools across the state to help them leverage programs like CEP and maximize school meals. So we love our school meal programs, but over the summer when school is out, kids lose access to school breakfast and lunch. And so that's where the summer meals program comes in. Eligible schools and community organizations, places like libraries, parks, farmers markets, rec programs can qualify to provide free, healthy meals to all kids age 18 and under in the community. So during COVID-19, some of those child nutrition waivers that I mentioned allowed for summer meals to be offered in any area of the state. So you may have seen some new sites popping up in your area. And they also allowed for grab and go or delivered meals over the summer, which is not normally part of the program. Ordinarily, kids come and eat at a meal site together. But again, those flexibilities are set to expire in June of 2022. So we're really quite concerned about this summer, and we're doing some advocacy on this that I will mention in a few minutes. But even within the current structure of summer meals, and even without the waivers coming into play, there's a lot of room for growth to reach more kids. So to give you some sense of where we're missing kids, in the North Country in 2019, so our last sort of typical summer, fewer than 1 in 6 of our low-income kids had access to summer meals. So how do we fix that? Outreach, if you thought I was going to say it, I hope I didn't disappoint. Certainly just letting families know about the sites that are operating near them is critical. And so we have a dedicated outreach resources page on summermealsny.org with a whole suite of outreach resources that you can use. We are going to be releasing a bunch of new resources soon, so look forward to that. There was an update to the summer meals texting hotline where families can find summer meal sites near them by sending a simple text message. That hotline is now 304-304. So if you're one of the many folks on this call who are already doing summer meals outreach, just flag that for you, and look forward to some new resources from us with that new texting hotline. And the other piece, of course, is making sure that there are summer meal sites available for kids, and making sure that all eligible schools and community organizations are tapping into the program. So I've updated, or I've linked, a couple of updated resources here that can be helpful at finding where there are gaps in meal sites right now and who might be able to help. So there's a USDA capacity builder map that can show you where the sites operated last year, so you can identify gaps in summer meal site availability near you. And then our summer meals sponsor directory will show you which schools and community organizations are already operating the summer meals program in your area and might be able to add on some more sites in the community if there are underserved locations and there's some interest in expanding the program. So the last program that I'm going to talk about before I hand it off to Kayla is Pandemic EBT, or PEBT. So if you're not already familiar, PEBT is a temporary pandemic response program that has provided EBT food benefits to kids who qualified for free or reduced price school meals through the National School Lunch Program and who had reduced in-person school attendance during COVID-19. So essentially kids who are learning in a hybrid or remote model and qualified for free or reduced price meals. It's also been expanded. So now PEBT benefits will be going out to kids under the age of 6 who received SNAP benefits at any point after October 2020, but those benefits have not gone out quite yet. There is no application process for PEBT. If families qualify, they're going to receive benefits automatically on either an EBT card that they already have or one that they'll get in the mail. So there's not really as much of a need for traditional outreach here to encourage families to apply. If they qualify, they'll receive the benefits automatically. But we still wanted to provide a couple of PEBT resources here because we know that some of you may be working with families who have questions about the program. They're not sure if they should have received a benefit and they haven't yet. Maybe they need to get a new PEBT card. Maybe they're not sure how to pin it or how to use it, where they can use their benefits, those sorts of things. So I've linked a couple of resources here that can be really helpful to share with families if they have questions. We have a PEBT webpage that goes through some of those more common troubleshooting problems and questions that folks might have. And then I've also linked the New York State PEBT FAQ page that the state updates as they're working their way through benefit issuance. And if you are in communication with families, just wanted to flag here too, that it's best if they can keep their PEBT card if they receive one, because we expect additional benefits to be distributed in the future, and it will avoid delays if they can hang on to the PEBT card that they already have. So would really appreciate your help getting that message out as well. So I'm going to toss the baton over to Kayla for a few minutes here to talk about SNAP. Kayla?
Thanks, Krista. And thank you all for joining us today. I'm going to talk a little bit about SNAP in New York State with sort of an emphasis on seniors because that is where my expertise lies. So for those of you who don't know, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program is the nation's largest federal nutrition program. SNAP is commonly referred to as food stamps, but it was renamed SNAP under the 2008 Farm Bill as a way to combat stigma. Each month, millions of families and individuals rely on SNAP to help put food on their tables. Households are comprised of various demographics, including seniors, veterans, working families, children, and many more. SNAP is authorized through Title IV of the Farm Bill every 5 years. The current authorization began in 2018 and will go until 2023. Krista will share a little bit more about how you can advocate for the Farm Bill in later slides. So in New York State, the Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance administers SNAP. OTDA is also responsible for training and monitoring the local DSS offices, as well as issuing state regulations and other policy directives. Households can apply for SNAP both in person and online. It's recommended that households apply online when they're able to. This helps reduce some of the administrative burden, as well as the amount of time it takes for offices to receive and process the SNAP application. Some folks can't apply online, and that's fine. You can still apply in person at your local DSS office. You can also request an application be mailed to you and return it via fax, mail, or in person. You can also print applications off the OTDA website and mail them back in. So next, I'm going to talk about NOEP. I will be referencing NOEP a few times throughout my slides. So for those of you who are not familiar with NOEP, Hunger Solutions New York manages the Nutrition Outreach and Education Program. It's in several counties across New York State. Shown is a map of all the counties that NOEP is in throughout New York State. NOEP coordinators can assist with a variety of SNAP-related activities, including outreach, education, application assistance, referrals to other federal food programs, and much more. To find your local NOEP coordinator, you can visit foodhelpny.org. All NOEP services are free and confidential. So now we'll talk a little bit about SNAP in the North Country. Overall, the data has shown that rural areas have higher participation in SNAP than other communities. Unfortunately, the need still remains high among older adults. There are nearly 200,000 older adults in New York State that are eligible for SNAP, but not accessing the program. There are many barriers to accessing SNAP. Some common barriers include physical distance from the local DSS office, the time it takes to fill out the application and gather the required documentation, as well as inaccurate or limited knowledge of SNAP, which may deter individuals from applying. Many folks have concerns that if they access SNAP, they will be taking away from others, and that is not true. As we learned, SNAP benefits are awarded to all households who need them with varying needs based on income and assets. So SNAP is one of the most effective forms of economic stimulus during a downturn. As we've seen, many individuals and families have turned to SNAP for assistance since COVID-19 began. As a response to COVID-19, emergency allotments of SNAP benefits were authorized by Congress under the Families First Coronavirus Response Act of 2020. In April 2021, all SNAP households became eligible for these emergency allotments. These emergency allotments will continue to be approved on a month-by-month basis until the COVID-19 public health emergency has been lifted in the United States. It's important to note that households do not need to apply for these extra benefits. They are awarded automatically. Households who already receive the maximum SNAP benefit are awarded $95, and households that are not receiving the maximum amount for their household size will receive the difference between their regular benefit and the maximum amount for that size. At this time, all SNAP households in New York State should have received their February emergency allotment benefit. If that's not happened, please contact your local SNAP office or the NOAP in your county if you have one. Emergency allotments do not need to be spent immediately. They will remain on EBT cards for 274 days from the date they are awarded. There are other COVID-19 flexibilities, including telephonic signatures, interview waivers, and more. You can read more and learn more about SNAP and COVID-19 related flexibilities by visiting our webpage. So now we're going to talk a little bit about using SNAP benefits. SNAP recipients can utilize their SNAP benefits in several ways. Participants may redeem their SNAP benefits in person at grocery retailers that accept EBT cards. These retailers include farmers markets, grocery and convenience stores, as well as food co-ops and farm stands. Participants can also redeem their SNAP benefits online at participating mobile farmers markets and grocery retailers. SNAP online ordering was expanded during the COVID-19 pandemic. New York State currently has 18 approved SNAP online retailers, including larger scale grocery retailers such as Walmart, Aldi, Hannaford, Amazon, Tops Market, and more. Please note though that SNAP benefits cannot be used to pay for grocery delivery fees. Items that can be purchased with SNAP include food, plants and seeds that grow food, honey, and herbs. You can utilize the USDA SNAP retailer locator to find your local retailers. So now we'll talk a little bit about how to maximize SNAP. Some farmers markets participate in programs such as Double Up Food Bucks and Fresh Connect checks. Programs like these provide SNAP participants with additional funds to purchase fresh produce. You can click on the links in the slides once we send them to you to find participating retailers near you. If your local farmers markets don't participate in these programs, encourage them to do so. It's a really great way for SNAP recipients to maximize their purchasing power. The Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program also allows eligible seniors to utilize coupon booklets at participating farmers markets and farm stands. For more information on that program, contact your local county office for the aging. They'll have more information on where booklets can be found. Please note though, these booklets are available on a first come, first served basis, and they do have an expiration date. So now we'll discuss a little bit more about SNAP rules for seniors and some changes that impact our food insecure older adults. There are many SNAP rules that help reduce barriers for seniors. Rules include categorical eligibility, excess medical expense deduction, and new SNAP changes, including the Elderly Simplified Application Project and the New York State Combined Application Project. New York State utilizes categorical eligibility to determine SNAP benefits. This allows households who have gross incomes between 130% and 200% of the federal poverty line to qualify for SNAP. Categorical eligibility considers the costs that we pay for our other basic needs like shelter, utilities, and childcare. These costs can cause household net incomes to fall at or below 100% of the federal poverty line. New York State also uses broad-based categorical eligibility to eliminate the SNAP asset test. Seniors can qualify for SNAP at 200% of the federal poverty line. Seniors may also have the option of utilizing the excess medical expense deduction. It allows adults ages 60 and over and people with disabilities who qualify for SNAP the option of deducting out-of-pocket medical expenses that exceed $35. By recording these expenses in the SNAP application process, seniors and people living with disabilities can get even more help paying for food each month. Unfortunately, this benefit is underutilized. Only about 19% of eligible households participate. It can be a little bit in depth. I'm happy to answer any questions offline about the medical deduction if anyone has any. So now we're going to talk about NYSNAP, which is changing over to NYSCAP. In 2003, the New York State Nutrition Improvement Project was implemented. This is a a process that automatically enrolls seniors who live alone and receives SSI into SNAP. In December 2021, the program began transitioning to the New York State Combined Application Project, or a NICE-CAP, as you may hear it called. This program will still automatically enroll seniors who live alone and receive SSI into SNAP. Once enrolled, recipients will receive a packet of information and their EBT card in the mail. They will need to return the reporting sheet in order to increase their SNAP budget, as their cases will open with only the minimum benefit amount, which is $20. EBT cards will need to be swiped within 90 days of their case opening, or the case will be closed. Also beginning in December 2021, New York State implemented the Elderly Simplified Application Project, or ESAP, as you may have heard it called. This project helps ease the paperwork burden on households comprised of all seniors or disabled individuals with no earned income by utilizing data matching. The SNAP certification period is also extended to 36 months, and participants do not have to complete an interview at recertification time. An additional effort tied to this program includes a new shortened application. Folks can use that shortened application, but please note that the local SNAP office will likely need to collect additional information to verify information reported on that application. You can find more information and updates on all of these rules by visiting snapandseniorsny.org. So some opportunities and resources. I help manage the SNAP and Seniors Professional Network, which is a new initiative by Hunger Solutions New York. We provide resources and outreach materials and other information to providers around New York State that help serve seniors. Membership is free and open to any provider that serves seniors, even if you serve one senior. You can sign up for membership at snapandseniorsny.org. Once you've signed up, you can expect to receive monthly email updates, invitations to webinars, resources, and more. Additionally, you can connect with your local NOAP coordinator for more SNAP assistance and outreach by visiting foodhelpny.org. So that's all for me. I'm going to turn it back over to Krista so she can talk about some advocacy efforts.
Thank you so much, Kayla. And I'm very excited. This is my favorite part. I get to talk about some really exciting and impactful advocacy opportunities that are on the horizon, both at the federal and state level. So I'm going to start off with some of the more time-sensitive issues at play here, and that's getting some of the COVID-19 flexibilities and boosted benefits extended beyond their current expiration dates. So as I mentioned earlier, there are child nutrition waivers in place that are allowing schools to serve free school meals for all of their students. They're enabling grab and go and delivered meals where needed, and they're allowing summer and after school meal programs to operate in all areas of the state. Ordinarily, those programs are limited to locations where 50% or more of the kids qualify for free or reduced price school meals. These waivers are set to expire in June of 2022. So without further action, we'll lose these flexibilities for this coming summer and the school year following. We're really concerned about the impacts. The pandemic is very much still here, and it's going to take years for families and schools to fully recover. So this is certainly not the time to be rolling back access to school meals and summer meal programs. We also want to see the boosted WIC benefits extended so that families can continue to buy more of the fresh fruits and vegetables that they need. Those boosted benefits are currently set to expire in March, and we're really hoping to see them extended as they have been multiple times thus far. So on both of these extensions, we're really seeing a need for lawmakers to understand the impacts that these flexibilities and policies have had in their local communities and across the state, and to understand why it's so essential and urgent that we get these extensions in place. So if you're here from a school or an organization and you can share your story of how the child nutrition waivers have helped you reach kids with meals throughout the pandemic, or maybe you can share how the WIC benefits have helped your family or a family that you serve, Please share your stories, whether they're a sentence or an essay. They really speak volumes and help Congress to understand the urgency of extending these flexibilities and boosted benefits. So I've included links on the right-hand side of this slide where you can submit stories if you have them. But looking beyond those temporary flexibilities, we really want to make permanent improvements in the child nutrition programs. And the way that we can do that is through federal child nutrition reauthorization, or CNR. So what this is every 5 years or so, Congress basically opens the books on all of the child nutrition program regulations. And this is our primary chance to make big changes in programs like school meals, summer meals, CACFP, and WIC. We are long overdue for a child nutrition bill. The last one was in 2010, if any of you are familiar with the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act that passed back then. Made a lot of difference for school meals in particular. But that was 12 years ago. And I see on the slide that I say every 5 years, Congress is supposed to do this, right? So we're about 7 years overdue. The good news, though, is that we're hearing that Congress may take up CNR in the spring. So we might have a really big opportunity coming up over the next couple of months to make some big changes in the child nutrition programs. So a few of our top priorities for the child nutrition reauthorization bill, providing free healthy school meals for all kids permanently is of course at the top of the list here. We'd also like to see those area eligibility requirements that limit the reach of summer and after school meals eliminated so that more of our rural communities can participate even if they don't meet a certain threshold of 50% or more of their kids qualifying for free or reduced price meals. We'd love to see a nationwide permanent summer EBT benefit program that would provide food benefits to kids over the summer break, really building on the success of pandemic EBT over the last several years. Extending WIC eligibility to a child's 6th birthday would help close the gap between when a child can receive WIC benefits and when they might be able to receive free or reduced price meals in kindergarten or pre-K. We'd also love for CACFP to cover a 3rd meal for kids who are in full day childcare. Right now, providers are limited to a total of 2 meals and 1 snack per day, even if a child is in care for 8 hours or more. And across all of the child nutrition programs, we see meaningful opportunities for streamlining regulations and increasing meal reimbursements so that it's more feasible to operate these programs at the local level. This is not an all-inclusive list by any means. If you're interested in digging in more, I've included a link where you can find our complete priorities for child nutrition reauthorization. But I think that these examples can give you a sense of just how impactful this child nutrition bill could be. The other big opportunity that we might have to make some progress on some of those same priorities is through a budget reconciliation bill at the federal level. So most recently, this was called the Build Back Better Act. We're not totally sure if that name is going to carry forward, but we're really hopeful that negotiations will restart on this package because it included some critical investments in child nutrition programs. The child nutrition provisions that were included in the Build Back Better Act would have allowed New York to provide free school meals to all students at no additional cost to the state. And it would have established a nationwide summer EBT program that would have reached more than 2 million kids in New York State with summer EBT benefits to spend at local grocery stores and farmers markets when they don't have access to school meals. So again, we're really hopeful that negotiations are going to restart. We hear that that might happen before May, but that Congress would be starting with a much smaller package than originally proposed. And so we're really wanting to encourage lawmakers to prioritize these child nutrition provisions when they're deciding what to include in a new package. The other piece of federal legislation that I wanted to mention is the Farm Bill. I'm sure many of you who are involved in agriculture are well aware that Farm Bill reauthorization is coming up in 2023. You may or may not know that this is where SNAP regulations live in federal policy. And so this is our key opportunity for protecting and strengthening SNAP. So again, not an all-inclusive list, but some of our SNAP priorities include increasing the adequacy of SNAP benefits, improving some of those deductions that Kayla mentioned and expanding those out a little bit, removing time limits for SNAP participation, which are both ineffective and cruel, frankly, and permanently expanding eligibility for low-income college students who experience food insecurity at really alarming rates. So lots of opportunity here. We do expect some movement on this bill soon. Typically, priorities start to be set at least a year before it expires. We would expect things to maybe move a little bit faster even after the midterms. So stay tuned if you're interested in getting involved in advocacy on this bill. And then there's some really exciting advocacy happening at the state level as well. So I mentioned a couple of different ways that federal legislation could allow free school meals for all kids, but the reality is that New York can and should make this happen regardless of federal action. So we led a sign-on letter back in December that received 150 signatures from organizations across the state urging Governor Hochul to include free school meals for all New York kids in her executive budget. While it didn't quite make it in there, the letter did help to generate some interest in the Assembly and in the Senate. And so we're currently advocating to get this included in one House budget. So we're going to keep trucking forward with this advocacy until we make it happen. New York is really well positioned to provide free school meals to all kids. And they wouldn't even be the first ones to do it. California and Maine passed similar bills this past year. And so we want to see New York join them. If you get even a little bit excited about this stuff and you want to join us in helping to strengthen the federal nutrition programs, we would love to have you. If you're here from an organization that might like to join our School Meals for All coalition, please send me an email. We would really happily add you to the list and keep you in the loop on our communications going forward. On the federal level, while we wait for some movement on child nutrition reauthorization and on the Farm Bill, we would love your help getting some more co-sponsors on marker bills that articulate some of the policy priorities that I've shared. So if you're not familiar, marker bills are not necessarily intended to pass as a piece of federal legislation, but they can serve as building blocks and they help to articulate the priorities that will ultimately end up in some of these bills. So the more co-sponsors, the more support that we can get on the bills that I've linked here, the better chance that they're going to actually end up in some of those final packages. And finally, I've said, stay tuned probably 20 times over the last 10 minutes. And also like, this may be happening in the spring. The best way to stay updated as all of this moves forward is to subscribe to our advocacy alerts. And you can get to those at hungersolutionsny.org/subscribe and join our listserv there. So I'm going to wrap us up here. We're going to be sending out the slide deck. So we wanted to include just a quick rundown of all of our program-specific URLs where you can find the outreach resources that we talked about and much more information than you probably bargained for. Whatever you want to dig into, you can find it here. And then we hope that you'll stay connected with us. So we have our emails here, and I think we'll probably stick them in the chat too so that you have them right away. We hope that this quick overview that we did today is just the start of an ongoing discussion and that we can work with you on whatever priorities you're interested in moving forward in your communities. So with that, I think we're gonna switch to some questions here. And I see a first question about area eligibility, and I'm more than happy to expand on that. So essentially for summer meal programs and for after school meal programs, those are the two programs that are most affected by this, open sites that serve the community can only be located where 50% or more of the kids qualify for free or reduced price school meals. So that could mean that the local school has 50% or more of their students qualified for free school meals, or it could mean that the location is in a census block where 50% or more of the kids are over 185% of the poverty level. And so what that means in practice is that for rural areas, especially where poverty might be prevalent, but it's not quite as concentrated, it can be really difficult to reach that 50% threshold. So you have a lot of school districts that are at, 45, 46, sometimes even 49% of their kids qualifying for free or reduced price meals, but they can't participate in the summer meal program and serve their whole communities. There are some ways that they can serve smaller groups of kids who are enrolled in a particular program, but we really want to see more communities able to provide summer meal sites and after school meal programs that serve all of their kids. And so that's what we're hoping to see change in the child nutrition bill, either getting that 50% reduced down to 40%, or if I had my way, it would be eliminated so that all communities could participate.
So I see a question in the chat as well. Do you have any information for small food producers who use point of sale systems like Square and Barn to Door about the future for utilizing SNAP online? Unfortunately, don't have any information for that off the top of my head, but I'm happy to do some digging and get back to you, Claudia, about that.
Yeah, I'm going to pop our emails in the chat here. I think that's something that we can definitely get you some information on and follow up online. So here's my email. And Kayla, I'm gonna take the liberty.
I've got mine right here if you want me to send it.
Terrific. That's even better. There's Kayla. Excellent. Any other questions? All right, well, we might be all set. I think we have just a few more minutes. Oh, just kidding. What's the average SNAP benefit per person in the North Country? You know what, Kayla, do you know that off of the top of your head? I think I might be able to find it.
I wish that I did, but I don't. I am a couple presentations back, I had that nailed down, but off the top of my head, I don't know. It is higher right now because of emergency allotments.
Right. So right now, all of the families who are receiving SNAP in the North Country would be receiving that maximum benefit amount. We do produce congressional district data sheets. So we have one for the 21st district. I'm going to pull up really quick. Well, shoot, it doesn't include the average SNAP benefits. But if you're interested in the other figures for the 21st district, I'm going to pop this in the chat. It was last updated in 2020, so there might be some updates since then. But just to give you a general sense of who's receiving benefits and where there might be some opportunities for growth. Yeah, and thank you. Some folks are sharing some additional resources in the chat. That's super helpful. That's great. And yeah, Farmers Market Federation, definitely a good resource for farmers markets and direct farms. Great. Well, I think we might be all set here. But as I mentioned, we really want this to be an ongoing conversation. So as you get this slide deck and you start clicking through and you have some questions, or if you think of something an hour from now or a week or a month from now, please don't hesitate to reach out. We are always happy to talk about the federal nutrition programs and assist in your work however we can. So thank you so very much. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our presenters, Kayla and Krista, today. This is the close of the first day of the 2022 Food Justice Summit. We do have some really great presentations planned for tomorrow, and we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow if you're able to join us. Thank you again, everyone, and we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you.